Another sign of strained relations in the region, in particular between Israel and Turkey. Now, Israeli soccer player Sagiv Yehezkel was arrested in Turkey last night, being Sunday, over a gesture he made during a game to the Israeli hostages to mark their days in Hamas captivity. According to Turkish media, he will be brought before a judge this morning to testify against the charges of inciting people to hatred and hostility. Yehezkel was cited by Ynet, an Israeli news channel, as telling his team's leadership that all he wanted was to offer a humanitarian gesture to the Israeli hostages in Gaza. He was promptly suspended from the team amid wider calls to terminate his contract completely. Still with me in studio, Dr. Eytan Cohen Yanarocak, a Turkey expert at the Jerusalem Institute for Strategy and Security. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
Recently rekindled relations, and they are not looking good. Anti-Semitism is widespread throughout Turkey, where Jews, like the Holocaust, are being barred from entering shops and restaurants. Turkey's accused Israel of espionage on its territory, making countless arrests over the last few weeks. And now this. We have an Israeli soccer player who plays for a prominent Turkish team who is being told that he is facing incitement charges. If this is part of a bigger plan, perhaps, of the Turkish government, for what purpose?
First of all, I would like to remind that, unfortunately, this is not the first case. Only in 2021, we have witnessed another important issue of the Oknin case. Two Israeli tourists took some pictures in Istanbul and they were taken into custody. They had to stay in the Turkish prison for a couple of days. And now we are witnessing this. Obviously, this will deepen the mistrust between Israel and Turkey. I believe that this will also damage the Turkish tourism, because at the end of the day, the event took place in the city of Antalya, which is considered as a very hot tourist destination for the Israeli tourists. And I believe that also the Israeli soccer player felt, when he did this gesture, this tribute to the Israeli hostages, he did not think that this will create a problem. At the end of the day, he did not say something controversial. He only wanted to raise an awareness regarding the Israeli hostages that are taken. They were kidnapped by Hamas terrorists. We all know that. But unfortunately, in Turkey, the media is very much one-sided, and they portrayed this gesture as a celebration of 100 days of killing against the Israeli civilians, which is really unthinkable. But now we're gonna see if he will be released soon. I really hope that the authorities will extradite him immediately. But I'm very skeptical regarding that, because the authorities may try to turn this into a new political drama in order to get more public approval at home. And now there is another story which is now becoming more popular. Another Israeli soccer player in the team called Başakşehir in Istanbul, he also shared a gesture for the hostages. And now in the Turkish social media, people are talking about him. I really wish not, but soon maybe we will hear also his name will be added next to Yehezkel's name. I would like to remind that there are also some other players in Fenerbahce, in basketball team. It's really incredible. I remember from my childhood, I grew up in Turkey. I remember from the days like Chaim Revivo played in Fenerbahce, Pini Balili played in Sivasspor, Ronen Harazi played in Bursaspor. I think these are now fading memories. I really don't think that when the Israeli soccer players will going to see the current status of Yehezkel, I really don't think that they would be eager to play in Turkey.
Obviously, it must be scary times for Israelis, as you mentioned. Long were the days past where, Israelis and Turkey had very good ties, to the point that there were a fortune of sportsmen playing in Turkey without any repercussions. But let alone being an Israeli, part of the Jewish community in Turkey, this must be incredibly frightening, the amount of anti-Semitism, especially with the numerous reports of radicalizations of many people in Turkey, not to mention the fact that Turkey is harboring and hosting Hamas terrorists themselves. And on top of that, Iran has incredibly close ties to Turkey as well. What is it like from a perspective of, you know, there's no more that Jews and Israelis see their fates as inextricably separate. They are completely intertwined. And so being a Jew in Turkey right now on top of all this news must be terrifying.
Must be terrifying, must be very, you know, not easy. Okay, I also speak with my friends, and they also feel the pressure on daily basis. But they all live in their own, you know, comfort zones, and in their comfort zones, they are relatively okay. But they are very much concerned for their children, and most of them nowadays, it's not a secret; it's a very well-known reality that they are trying to find an option outside of Turkey. And it is very challenging to live in Turkey with this Jewish identity. It's also very challenging, I think, also for the you know, ordinary Turkish citizens, because we are talking about the freedom of speech. Now we are seeing that this gesture that the Israeli soccer player did was should be understood in the framework of freedom of thought, freedom of expression. And where there is no freedom of expression and freedom of thought, so I don't believe that there can be a future there. So this is very challenging, very depressing. You spoke about the Turkish Jewish community. Now we do not have an embassy, a functioning embassy, and a functioning consulate in Ankara and Istanbul. It means that the Jews of Turkey, if they would like to make aliyah to Israel, or they should go to Greece, or they should go to Georgia. We are not talking about this, but it is also a very important difficulty for a community. You know, once we had 6 or 7 flights per day, direct flights. Now, to come to Israel, people have to go via Greece or via Georgia. This is insane.
We've spoken a lot about, obviously, the negative impact that this is having, but perhaps explain to some of the audience that is unaware, you know, the way that it's being put across is if Israel and Turkey have such conflicting interests at the moment and have such bad ties, why not just in the relations? So explain a little bit to the viewers from a political and an economic point of view what the trade is, what the connection is that makes it so difficult to sever these ties completely.
Okay, first of all, I would like to mention when we are looking at the balance between exports and imports in the bilateral trade, the Turks are at the advantageous side, meaning that they are exporting more to Israel. It means that it will be an own goal in the terminology of soccer, if we are saying, since we already started our interview with soccer, right? It would be an own goal if they will suspend the bilateral trade. For instance, the Erdogan administration is facing wide criticism at home that still the Turkish container ships are bringing lots of containers to Israel. They continue to their export, and the Turks have no intention to cut this line because it is a very important source of income for the Turkish industry, especially when we are talking about steel. The most important customer of the Turkish steel in Israel is the Israeli Defense Ministry, but of course this is a censored fact. This is a censored fact in Turkey. Nobody's talking about that. And even more ironically than that, almost, if I'm not mistaken, like a week ago, the Turkish Ministry of Trade, they issued a very controversial tweet that all of the goods that are sent to Israel are not for the Jewish sector of Israel, but they are all designated for the so-called occupied territories and also for the Israeli Arabs. So when we are looking at this big picture, we see that despite the fact that we are facing a political tension right now because of the political profit, because of the economic profit, the Turks, and also because of their fragile economy, they have no intention to set back from doing trade with Israel. But at the same time, we should not forget that this is not something popular in Turkey. If I may, I would like to provide you another dimension. Turkey needs Israel gravely when they are exporting goods to the Arab world because of the current political situation in Iraq and in Syria. They cannot send vehicles via Syria in Iraq, for instance, to Jordan, to Saudi Arabia. So they are sending their goods via Israel's Haifa port, and from Haifa, all of the goods are passing to Jordan, and from there to Saudi Arabia and to the rest Arab world, meaning that the tiny Israel has an important strategic position when it comes to Turkish exports, not only to Israel, but to whole Middle East, and that is why the Turks are also not eager to cut the relations.
Dr. Eytan Cohen Yanarocak, thank you very much for that thorough explanation
and for
being with me here in studio.